Former St. Mary Western Member of Parliament Jolyan Silvera has reportedly pleaded guilty to manslaughter in relation to the 2023 shooting death of his wife Melissa, a land developer. The incident unfolded at the couple's St. Andrew residence on November 10. Silvera, who has been in custody since January 2024, had initially suggested his wife died of natural causes, but an autopsy weeks later revealed she died of gunshot wounds. Bullet fragments were reportedly found inside her body. The couple tied the knot in 2015 and their marriage yielded 4 children. Silvera is represented by King's Counsel Peter Champagny and attorney Patrice Riley. Meanwhile, the Crown is represented by prosecutors Dwayne Green and Latoya Bernard. As the matter is being heard in camera, the prosecution has refrained from commentary, reminding that the case has not yet been concluded. It's also unclear whether the prosecution will accept the guilty plea. Efforts to get a comment from Silvera's defense team proved futile, but we'll continue to track this developing story. In the meantime, CVM News spoke to senior defense lawyer Bert Samuels for a breakdown of what this typically means for sentencing, trial, and on what grounds such pleas are usually sought. We remind that Samuels is not the attorney handling the matter, nor does he speak directly to the specific case. Bargain was sought ahead of a prominent figure heading to the gun court for trial on murder charges for his wife. However, instead of murder, the politician pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter, leaving many to wonder why and on what basis. Senior defense attorney Bert Samuels says there are many conditions under which a plea bargain can be sought in certain cases, stressing he's not familiar with the details of the specific matter and is speaking only in generalities.
Yeah, very often the lawyer for the accused will make a representation to the DPP and say, listen, we are prepared to do a plea bargaining here. My instructions are that the person acted when they lost their control of themselves, and therefore we're asking whether you would be prepared to accept a manslaughter plea rather than a plea to murder. So that the DPP must sign off on that, must agree that they will, consider and accept the guilty plea.
He notes provocation as one of the grounds on which some accused argue for manslaughter versus murder charges, which could ultimately result in lesser sentencing if accepted. It could also mean rather than a trial, the option exists for a formal verdict to be handed down and mitigation pleas made by the defense to seek reduced sentences.
Case of murder can be reduced to manslaughter as an alternative to murder on certain bases. The best known example is where a person admits to taking the life of another, but they were suffering from provocation. That is, you lost self-control, and it was in circumstances where you were warranted to lose your self-control that the incident happened. So that some examples may be where a person comes and finds a person in the act of adultery, or it may be a person who has used profanity, speaking about your family, or using words or actions which cause you to lose your self-control.
Samuels explains it's within the DPP's remit to accept a lesser charge while citing several benefits for both parties and the justice system.
It is within the remit and the wisdom of the DPP to accept a lesser charge, a plea to a lesser charge. What it does, it shortens the time that the court would be spending on a trial. And a trial like, the one before the court could have lasted 2 or 3 weeks. So the saving of time, it also encourages persons to throw in the towel, and it augurs well for, lessening the burden, the court case load, the case load of the court. So sometimes it's a win-win situation, and sometimes there are family members who cannot go through the agony of a trial to hear the evidence being repeated. So sometimes it is a win-win.
In the case now being keenly watched involving a politician, he reminds once it approaches sentencing, the courts will also consider the time spent in remand awaiting trial. Of note, Silvera has been in custody since 2024 January. That's just around 2 years so far. Well-placed law enforcement sources have confirmed major leadership shakeup at the JCF's Counterterrorism and Organized Crime Investigations Branch, CTOC. The changes follow a major drug seizure at a storage facility at CTOC 2 weeks ago, an operation that led to the removal of the Firearm and Narcotics Investigations Division, FNID, from the command of CTOC. As part of the changes, Assistant Commissioner of Police Dr. Anthony McLaughlin has been reassigned from CTOC and will now head the Forensic Services Branch. He will be replaced by Senior Superintendent Christopher Brown, who has been appointed the new head of CTOC. In addition, Superintendent Victor Barrett has been transferred from CTOC to the Crime and Security Portfolio. Speaking recently on Lead Story against the backdrop of FNID's removal from CTOC, security consultant Robert Finzi-Smith said CTOC's operations may have been crippled following the drug bust.
Look at what the original mandate for CTOC was. And when you remove a linchpin of that mandate, who do they report to?
So functionally speaking, then, this is not the removal of a finger, but the removal of perhaps half the body?
Yeah. You may have done not so much as you may have done an amputation.
Does that not then mean that FNID, who would carry out the organization, would need to be operationally distinct from CTOC?
Exactly. But there's another thing I haven't heard anybody mention. Are there any ongoing cases that were brought and are being prosecuted through CTOC? What does that mean for the defendant?
Oh, so the functional issues then are the ones that you say out of this, especially the internal oversight mechanism part and talking about what the Jamaica Constabulary Force has done. It now has implications for these cases that CTOC is carrying. How so?
If I were a lawyer and you brought my clients to court, the first thing I have to do is question the veracity of the officers who have brought this case. And if the officers are on the investigation, how are they now going to contribute to the prosecution of any case?
The St. Mary police have captured a man wanted for murder in the Kingston East Division during an early morning operation on Monday. Acting on intelligence, members of the St. Mary Division conducted a series of targeted raids in Islington. During the operation, Karen Bailey, also known as Bones, a 32-year-old office administrator of Ligony Kingston 6 and a resident of Islington St. Mary, was apprehended. Investigations are ongoing. Meanwhile, investigators in St. Catherine have charged 44-year-old teacher Joel Ellis with possession of prohibited weapon, dealing in prohibited weapon, unauthorized possession of ammunition, and assault at common law. The charges stem from an assault and eventual seizure of 2 firearms and several rounds of ammunition at his home in Greater Portmore, St. Catherine last Wednesday. Reports from the Greater Portmore police are that at about 6:50 a.m., Ellis brandished a firearm, pointed it at a woman with whom he had an argument, and tapped her in the face. A report was made to the police, and later the same day, a team carried out an operation at his address. During a search of the premises, a Smith Wesson .38 revolver loaded with 2.38 cartridges were found in a black bag beneath his bed. A further search of the bedroom led to the discovery of an imitation Glock firearm loaded with 5 imitation 9mm cartridges in a carton box. They were seized and Ellis was taken into custody, where he was charged following a question and answer session in the presence of his attorney. A court date is being finalized.